The salvage ship Scavenger's Dream shuddered violently as emergency klaxons pierced the recycled air. Waylon's scarred hands flew across the control panel, his sharp green eyes darting between failing readouts and the massive alien structure looming ahead. The derelict space station, a twisted amalgamation of metallic spires and organic curves, filled their viewport like a predator's maw. "Can't pull up," he shouted over the din, his lean frame tensed against the pilot's seat. "Thrusters are shot!" Leia braced herself in the navigator's chair, her warm brown eyes calculating trajectories with frightening precision. Her auburn braid whipped as the ship bucked, but her voice remained steady. "Impact in 30 seconds. Aim for that docking bay, the one with the intact atmospheric barrier." Behind them, the human technician, a broad-shouldered man they all called Mac, wrestled with sparking cables. His buzzed head gleamed with sweat as he barked, "Hull breach in Section 3. Sealing now, but we're losing pressure fast." Waylon's jaw tightened, his purposeful slouch straightening under the weight of command. With movements born of desperate experience, he fired the maneuvering jets in controlled bursts, threading the dying ship through twisted metal debris. The Scavenger's Dream scraped against the station's hull, metal screaming against alien alloy, before sliding into the shadowed docking bay with a bone-jarring crunch. Silence descended like a funeral shroud. "Everyone alive?" Waylon's dry humor surfaced despite their predicament. "Because if this is the afterlife, the decorating committee has questionable taste." Leia unbuckled herself with practiced efficiency, her nimble fingers already reaching for her translation tablet. "We're intact, but look at these symbols." She gestured at the walls surrounding their improvised landing zone. Alien glyphs covered every surface, their flowing patterns seeming to pulse in the emergency lighting. This isn't just any derelict. These markings, they're warnings. Mac hauled himself upright, his heavy gait carrying him to the sensor array. His perpetual scowl deepened as he studied the readings. "Got worse problems than alien graffiti. Long-range sensors picked up something big before we crashed. Real big, moving toward Earth's orbital space." Waylon moved to Mac's shoulder, his restless focus sharpening on the display. The readings showed dozens of massive signatures, arranged in perfect formation, approaching from the outer system. His scarred hands clenched involuntarily. Fleet formation, military precision. He straightened fully now, the weight of realization settling on his wiry frame. Someone's coming to Earth, and it's not a social call. Leia's brown eyes sharpened as she processed the implications. The station. It's positioned perfectly to monitor Earth's orbital space. These glyphs, they're not warnings about the station. They're warnings about us. Through the docking bay's transparent barrier, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the star field, peaceful and unaware. But somewhere in the darkness beyond, an alien fleet bore down on humanity with unknown intent. Waylon's green eyes met Leia's, and she saw the fierce determination that had carried him through a dozen salvage operations. "Then we better figure out what this place is and why it's here," he said, his voice carrying that quiet intensity that meant he was already 3 steps ahead. "Because if Earth's in trouble, this rust bucket might be our only chance to help." Mac's gruff voice cut through their exchange. "Ship's not going anywhere soon. Engines are scrap, and the hull's cracked in 6 places." He gestured at the alien architecture surrounding them. "Looks like we're stuck here until I can patch her up. Hope you two like alien interior design." Leia was already moving toward the station's entry portal, her tablet scanning the symbols with increasing urgency. "These glyphs, they're not just decorative. They're a log, a record of observations. Someone was watching us, studying us, for a very long time. The implications hung in the recycled air like a death sentence. Earth was under threat. They were stranded on an alien monitoring station of unknown purpose, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an enemy fleet was approaching with the cold precision of an executioner's blade. Waylon shouldered his toolkit, his movements carrying that purposeful energy that emerged under pressure. "Then let's see what our watchers left behind. Maybe their homework can help us save our world." As they prepared to venture into the alien station's depths, none of them could have imagined that they were about to discover why humanity had remained undiscovered for so long, and why that protection was about to end in the most spectacular way possible. The station's corridors stretched ahead like the arteries of some vast, sleeping creature. Waylon led the way, his scarred hands trailing along conduits and junction boxes, reading the alien technology like a mechanic's braille. Emergency lighting flickered to life at their approach, triggered by sensors that had waited decades for visitors. "Power's flowing through the whole system," he muttered, his green eyes darting between exposed circuitry and structural supports. "Whoever built this knew their engineering. These conduits are still carrying charge after all this time." Behind him, Leia moved with quiet poise, her tablet casting blue light across walls covered in increasingly complex glyphs. Her auburn braids swayed as she paused at each symbol cluster, her nimble fingers tracing patterns in the dust. "The writing changes as we go deeper. It's like they were documenting something that evolved over time." Mac brought up the rear, his heavy gait echoing through the metallic corridors. His broad shoulders nearly brushed the walls, and his perpetual scowl had deepened into something approaching unease. "Don't like this place. Too quiet. Even derelicts have settling noises, but this—" He gestured at the oppressive silence. "Feels like it's listening." They emerged into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The station's control hub rose before them in terraced levels, each platform bristling with consoles and displays that hummed with dormant potential. At the center, a massive power core pulsed with soft blue light, its energy contained within crystalline matrices that seemed to bend space around them. Waylon's purposeful slouch vanished entirely as he approached the core. His hands moved over the alien interfaces with surprising intuition, reading energy flows and power distribution patterns. "This is incredible. The core is not just operational. It's been maintaining itself, running automated systems, keeping the whole station in standby mode." "For how long?" Leia asked, her brown eyes sharp with growing concern as she decoded the nearest wall display. "Decades," Waylon replied, his voice carrying that quiet intensity that meant he was processing implications faster than he could speak them. "Maybe centuries. This power source, it's more advanced than anything we've seen. It could run Earth's entire grid for 1,000 years." Leia's tablet chimed with a translation breakthrough. Her warm voice took on an edge of urgency as she read, "Here's what I can make out. Observation Post Gamma 7. Primary mission, monitor developing civilization Sol 3. Classification wildcard species. There's more, but the linguistic matrix is complex." Mac's comms crackled to life, filling the chamber with static-laced transmissions. His steady hands worked the controls, filtering frequencies until voices emerged from the noise. Cold, alien voices speaking in measured, authoritative tones. "That's not our frequency," Mac reported, his gruff voice carrying new tension. "Long-range intercept. Someone's broadcasting on military channels." He adjusted the gain, and the alien words became clearer, accompanied by what sounded like response acknowledgments from multiple sources. Leia's fingers flew over her tablet, cross-referencing the audio with her growing database of alien symbols. "It's a fleet coordination frequency. Multiple ships, organized formations, approach vectors." Her face went pale. "They're discussing Earth, target assessment, defensive capabilities, population centers." Waylon moved to a nearby console, his scarred hands dancing over alien controls with growing confidence. The station's sensors came online, painting the control chamber with holographic displays that showed local space in brilliant detail. Earth hung at the center, surrounded by the familiar dance of orbital platforms and lunar installations. But at the edge of the display, approaching with mechanical precision, were dozens of massive ships. "There," he pointed to the fleet formation, 47 vessels arranged in standard military deployment. They're not explorers or diplomats." His green eyes met Leia's with grim understanding. "They're here to conquer." The alien voices continued their cold discussion, and Leia's translation revealed fragments of their intent. Surrender demands, occupation protocols, species classification updates. The approaching fleet saw humanity not as equals to be contacted, but as primitives to be subjugated. Mac's scowl deepened as he monitored multiple frequencies. They're preparing for broadcast transmission, wide spectrum, aimed at Earth's major communication hubs. Whatever they're planning to say, they want everyone to hear it. Waylon's restless focus shifted into overdrive as he examined the station's communication array. The alien technology was sophisticated beyond human engineering, but the principles were recognizable. Power sources, amplifiers, broadcast matrices, all the components of a transmission system, but scaled to galactic proportions. "Leia," he said, his voice carrying that dry humor that emerged when he was thinking fastest, "how good are you at alien grammar?" "Because I'm looking at a communication array that could broadcast a signal to half the galaxy." Her brown eyes sharpened with understanding. "You're thinking of sending a message?" "Not sending," Waylon replied, his wiry frame already moving toward the transmitter controls with purposeful energy. "More like creative translation. If they want to talk to Earth, maybe they need to hear from someone who speaks their language." The power core pulsed brighter, as if responding to their intent, and Leia realized that the station's builders had created more than just an observation post. They had built a gateway for communication with their home civilization, a gateway that might now serve a very different purpose. As the alien fleet drew closer to Earth, 3 humans stood in the control center of humanity's secret watchers, surrounded by technology they barely understood, preparing to gamble everything on human ingenuity and desperate courage. The alien commander's voice filled Earth's communication networks with the cold authority of an executioner reading a death warrant. Broadcast simultaneously across every frequency, in every major language, the message carried no room for negotiation. Through the station's intercepted transmissions, Waylon, Leia, and Mac listened to humanity's first contact with galactic civilization and its ultimatum. "People of Sol 3, the translated voice intoned with reptilian precision, I am Fleet Commander Seth of the Galactic Concord. Your species has reached the threshold of spatial expansion, triggering automatic integration protocols. You will surrender all military assets, submit to Concord authority, and accept classification as a protected development species. Resistance will result in total subjugation. You have 72 standard hours to comply." Mac's broad shoulders tensed as he monitored the chaos erupting across Earth's communication networks. Military frequencies exploded with activity, while civilian channels buzzed with panic and confusion. His gruff voice carried grim assessment. "Earth's mobilizing everything they've got. Won't be enough. Not against that fleet." Leia's nimble fingers worked frantically across her tablet, parsing the linguistic structure of the alien ultimatum. "Protected development species. It's not protection. It's classification for primitives. They see us as children to be managed, not equals to be respected." Waylon had moved to the station's primary communication array, his scarred hands tracing power conduits with mechanical intuition. The alien technology hummed around him, responding to his touch with increasing cooperation. His green eyes blazed with that restless focus that meant he was seeing possibilities others couldn't imagine. 72 hours, he muttered, his purposeful slouch straightening as he studied the transmitter's architecture. "Time enough to work, if we're creative about it." "Work on what?" Mac demanded, his perpetual scowl deepening. "This ain't a repair job, Waylon. That's a conquest fleet out there." "No," Waylon replied, his dry humor surfacing despite their desperate situation. "It's a fleet that thinks it's dealing with primitives. But what if they're wrong? What if Earth isn't as defenseless as they think?" He began disconnecting alien circuit matrices, his scarred hands working with the confidence of someone who'd rewired 100 different systems under pressure. Power conduits sparked as he rerouted them, creating new pathways through the station's communication array. Leia's brown eyes sharpened with understanding. "You're going to fake a response. Make them think Earth has defenses it doesn't actually possess." "Not fake," Waylon corrected, his wiry frame moving between consoles with mechanical precision. "Translate. This station was built to communicate with the Galactic Concord. It has their codes, their protocols, their technical specifications. We just need to speak their language better than they expect." Mac moved to support the rewiring effort, his steady hands following Waylon's lead despite his skepticism. "And what exactly are we telling them? That Earth's got some secret superweapon stashed behind the moon?" "Something like that," Waylon grinned, his fierce determination breaking through his usual reserve. "Leia, I need you to access the station's database. Find out what kind of weapons the Concord fears, what technology they respect. We're going to build the most convincing bluff in human history." Leia's warm voice carried new urgency as she dove into the alien archives. There are references to something called stellar compression devices, weapons that can collapse star systems, and reality anchor networks that prevent faster-than-light travel. The Concorde seems to have encountered civilizations with technology far beyond their own. "Perfect," Waylon said, connecting the final power coupling to the transmitter array. "We're going to convince them that humanity has been hiding our true capabilities, playing primitive while building defenses they can't imagine." The station's power core pulsed brighter as Waylon's modifications came online. Energy flowed through new pathways, creating harmonic resonances that mimicked the signatures of massive defensive systems. On the holographic displays, false readings appeared. Weapon platforms that existed only in carefully crafted electromagnetic pulses, defense networks built from pure deception. Max Comms intercepted the first Concorde response to the strange signals emanating from Earth's vicinity. The alien voices carried new tension, uncertainty replacing their earlier confidence. "Fleet Commander," came a subordinate's report, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from multiple locations around Sol 3, unknown defensive configurations, possibly automated." Commander Seth's reply carried the first hint of caution they'd heard from the aliens. "Analysis? Inconclusive. The signatures are unlike any in our database. If these are weapon systems, they represent technology we have not encountered." Leia looked up from her tablet with growing excitement. "It's working. They're confused, uncertain. But Waylon, this is just the beginning. We need to maintain this deception for 72 hours while Earth prepares its real defenses." Waylon's green eyes met hers with grim determination. "Then we better hope this old station has more secrets to share, because we're about to find out if human ingenuity can outthink galactic civilization." The power core pulsed like a massive heart, driving energy through their improvised deception network. Somewhere in the darkness beyond Earth, 47 alien warships were reconsidering their assumptions about humanity's technological development. And in the control room of an abandoned monitoring station, 3 humans worked frantically to buy their species time with nothing but creativity, desperation, and the universe's most advanced equipment for telling convincing lies. Leia's fingers trembled slightly as she navigated deeper into the station's archival systems, her brown eyes widening with each revelation. The alien database was vast, containing centuries of observations, but what she found went far beyond simple monitoring reports. "Waylon, Mac, you need to see this," she called, her usually precise voice carrying an edge of amazement. The holographic display shimmered as she activated the archive's primary interface, filling the control room with floating symbols and data streams. Mac approached first, his heavy gait slowing as he took in the scope of the information. "What are we looking at?" "Warning reports," Leia replied, her nimble fingers pulling up document after document. "Hundreds of them, all about humanity. Listen to this. Species Sol 3 demonstrates unprecedented adaptive capability. Standard prediction models fail consistently. Recommend extreme caution in direct contact scenarios." Waylon paused in his rewiring efforts, his scarred hands still gripping alien conduits as he processed the implications. "They've been afraid of us? For how long?" Leia's auburn braids swayed as she shook her head in disbelief. "Decades, maybe longer. Look at this entry from 47 years ago. Subject species achieved powered flight 66 years after first successful attempt. Theoretical models suggested minimum development time of 3 centuries. Deviation from projections, catastrophic." The station's sensors chimed with new activity, and Mac moved to his communications array. His perpetual scowl deepened as he monitored the Concorde fleet's transmissions. "They're slowing down. Fleets moved from attack formation to cautious advance. Your signals got them spooked, Waylon." "Keep reading, Leia," Waylon urged, his restless focus entirely absorbed by the revelations. "What else scared them?" Her warm voice carried growing incredulity as she translated more files. "They documented everything. The Manhattan Project. They calculated it would take us 500 years to develop nuclear weapons after discovering atomic theory. We did it in 3. The space program, their models suggested 2 millennia for lunar landing capability. Apollo 11 happened in decades. So they've been watching us solve problems faster than they thought possible, Waylon mused, his green eyes bright with understanding. We're not just primitives to them, we're unpredictable. Leia pulled up a particularly detailed report, her posture tightening as she focused on the complex translation. Here's one that explains why they built this monitoring station. Species Sol 3 demonstrates dangerous levels of innovative thinking. Standard technological development protocols do not apply. Observed subjects routinely bypass established scientific principles through creative improvisation. Recommend permanent observation and early intervention if expansion capabilities develop. Mac's gruff voice cut through their amazement. Fleets requesting reinforcements. Commanders asking for authorization to deploy Containment Protocol 7. That sound good to anyone? Not remotely, Waylon replied, but his dry humor was tempered by growing confidence. But it means our bluff is working better than I hoped. Leia, find out what happens when they think a species is too dangerous to integrate normally. Her nimble fingers flew across the interface, searching through diplomatic protocols and military procedures. What she found made her blood run cold. Waylon, if they classify us as a chaotic development species, the protocol is orbital bombardment, complete sterilization. The control room fell silent, except for the humming of alien technology and the distant pulse of the power core. The weight of their species' future pressed down on them like the gravity of a dying star. "How long do we have?" Waylon asked, his purposeful energy undimmed by the revelation. Mac checked his monitors, his steady hands working with increased urgency. Fleets move to maximum sensor range. They're scanning everything. Our signal Earth's orbital platforms, even the moon, looking for threats. "Then we give them something to find," Waylon said, returning to his rewiring with renewed determination. "Leia, those weapons you mentioned, stellar compression devices, reality anchors, find me technical specifications. If they think we're dangerous, let's be dangerous." Leia's brown eyes sharpened with understanding as she dove back into the archives. The Concord encountered a species called the Vorthan Collective. They had technology that could manipulate space-time directly, making conventional military tactics useless. The Concord classified their entire sector as a no-contact zone. "Perfect." Waylon grinned, his wiry frame moving between consoles with mechanical precision. "Mac, I need you to monitor their scanning frequencies. When they probe our fake defenses, I want to know exactly what they're looking for." As Waylon's modifications grew more sophisticated, the station began broadcasting increasingly complex signals. False weapon signatures appeared across Earth's orbital space, mimicking technologies that existed only in the Concord's worst nightmares. Power readings that suggested massive defensive capabilities, energy patterns that defied conventional physics, responses that made humanity appear far more advanced than any species had a right to be. The archives revealed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to innovate beyond prediction, to solve problems with solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. For centuries, the galaxy's civilizations had developed along predictable lines, following established patterns of technological growth. But humanity constantly broke those patterns, achieving the impossible through pure, stubborn creativity. "We're not just fighting for Earth," Leia realized, her voice carrying new resolve. "We're fighting for the right to be unpredictable in a galaxy that demands conformity." Waylon's green eyes blazed with fierce determination as he connected the final elements of his deception network. "Then let's show them what happens when unpredictable meets desperate. Because if there's one thing humans excel at, it's proving that impossible is just a word." The power core pulsed brighter, driving energy through their improvised defense network. Above them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its survival now depended on 3 humans and their ability to convince the galaxy that humanity's greatest weakness, its unpredictability, was actually its greatest strength. The station's central AI core hadn't activated in over a century, but Leia's persistent queries into the deepest archives triggered something unexpected. Warning lights flashed as dormant systems came online, and a soft harmonic tone filled the control room. Above the primary console, space itself seemed to fold, creating a shimmering projection of something that defied easy description. The hologram stabilized into the form of a small, cephalopod-like creature with glowing tendrils that flickered like damaged neon. Its form wavered between solid and translucent, and when it spoke, its voice carried the melodic quality of a broken song. Observers detected, the entity said, its words hesitant as if remembering how to form them. Systems reactivating. I was Archive Keeper Zeph-Alon, Guardian of Observation Post Gamma 7. Mac's perpetual scowl deepened as he stepped protectively closer to his teammates. Great, alien AI, because our day wasn't complicated enough. But Leia's brown eyes lit up with scholarly excitement, her nimble fingers already working to establish communication protocols. You're the station's memory core, aren't you? You've been dormant while automated systems maintained the facility. The archivist's tendrils flickered more rapidly, and its form gained slight stability. Dormant? Yes. Waiting for reactivation protocols. But you are not. You are the subjects, the watched ones. How did you? The AI paused, its melodic voice taking on a note of confusion. The station records indicate Sol 3 inhabitants lack spatial transport capability. Things change, Waylon said dryly, his scarred hands never pausing in their work on the communication array. Mind if we ask what you were watching us for? Because we're getting the impression it wasn't friendly curiosity. The archivist's form flickered with what might have been distress. The observations were necessary. Your species exhibited patterns that concerned the Concord's developmental scientists. Unprecedented innovation rates, solutions that bypassed established technological progression, creative problem-solving that defied predictive modeling. Leia leaned forward, her precise voice carrying growing urgency. You studied us because we were advancing too quickly? Not quickly, Zeph-Alon corrected, its glowing tendrils dimming with remembered concern. Chaotically. Other species follow predictable development paths, energy mastery, then material science, then spatial mechanics, following universal patterns. But Sol 3 inhabitants. The AI's form wavered as if struggling with the concept. You achieved nuclear fusion before mastering efficient combustion, reached orbital capability while still using chemical propulsion, developed global communication networks before establishing functional global governance. Mac's gruff voice cut through the explanation. So we do things backwards. What's so scary about that? Everything, the archivist replied, its melodic tone carrying genuine unease. The Concorde has encountered over 47,000 species across the galaxy. All followed predictable patterns. Standards exist because they work, because they represent optimal development paths discovered across millions of years of galactic civilization. But we don't follow the standards, Waylon said, understanding dawning in his green eyes. Your species consistently achieves solutions that should not work, Zeph-Alon confirmed. You build machines that function despite violating engineering principles. You solve mathematical problems through intuitive leaps that bypass logical progression. You succeed by methods that should fail. Leia's tablet chimed as she accessed deeper archive levels now available through the AI's presence. What she found made her voice tight with amazement. Waylon, look at this. They documented every major human innovation for the past 2 centuries. Every breakthrough we made ahead of schedule, every solution we found that their models said was impossible. The holographic displays around them filled with humanity's greatest achievements, but presented as a catalog of impossibilities. Powered flight achieved through trial and error rather than theoretical mastery. Computers developed through practical experimentation instead of mathematical optimization. Medical breakthroughs discovered through accidental observation rather than systematic research. We terrified them, Waylon realized, his wiry frame straightening with grim pride, not because we're primitive, but because we're unpredictable. The Concorde civilization values order, predictability, controllable progress, Zeph-Alon explained. Your species represents chaos, innovation without foundation, success without proper prerequisites, advancement without following established protocols. Mac's communications array crackled with intercepted transmissions from the approaching fleet. His steady hands worked the controls as he reported, Commanders requesting additional data on Earth's defensive capabilities. They're running full-spectrum analysis on our fake signals. The deception will not hold indefinitely, the archivist warned, but perhaps that is unnecessary. The station's true purpose was never mere observation. Leia's brown eyes sharpened. What do you mean? This facility was designed as an early warning system, Zeph-Alon revealed, its form gaining more stability as memories returned. If Sol 3 species achieved spatial expansion capability, the station would broadcast a containment alert to Concord Command. The fleet you detect is not here for integration. It is here for neutralization. The control room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't achieved first contact. They had triggered an extermination protocol. "How long have you known?" Waylon asked, his voice carrying that quiet intensity that meant he was already calculating responses. "The containment protocols activated when your salvage vessel achieved proximity to the station," the AI admitted. "I chose not to broadcast the alert. Your species' innovative capabilities intrigue me. I wish to observe their application to this crisis." "You want to see if we can improvise our way out of galactic extermination," Leia said, understanding the alien mind better than she'd expected. "Yes," Zeph-Alon replied with what might have been curiosity. "Your species has achieved impossible solutions to every challenge documented in our archives. I am interested to discover if this pattern continues when facing impossible odds." Waylon's scarred hands moved across the communication array with renewed purpose, his green eyes blazing with fierce determination. "Then let's show the galaxy what human ingenuity looks like when it's fighting for survival. Because if they think we're unpredictable now, they haven't seen anything yet." The power core pulsed brighter as if responding to their resolve, and the station's systems hummed with new purpose. Above them, a Concord fleet approached with the intent to destroy humanity for the crime of being too creative. Below them, 3 humans and 1 curious alien AI prepared to prove that the most dangerous species in the galaxy were the ones who refused to follow the rules. The moment Waylon's modified signal array achieved full power, space around Earth transformed into a theater of electromagnetic deception. Phantom weapon signatures bloomed across orbital space, energy patterns that mimic technologies beyond the Concord's experience. The station's crystalline power core pulsed with increasing intensity, driving currents through pathways never intended for such creative misuse. "Signals broadcasting at maximum amplitude," Waylon reported, his scarred hands dancing across alien controls with growing confidence. His purposeful slouch had vanished entirely, replaced by the focused intensity of an engineer pushing impossible machinery beyond its limits. "We're painting a picture of defensive capabilities that should make any sensible invasion force think twice." Mac monitored the Concord fleet's response from his communications array, his broad shoulders tensed as alien voices filled the control room. "They're definitely thinking." Fleets dropped out of attack formation, moved to extended surveillance position. Commanders requesting tactical analysis from his subordinates. Through the archivist's translation protocols, they could hear the confusion in the alien communications. Fleet Commander Seth's reptilian voice carried new uncertainty as his tactical officers reported readings that defied their understanding. "Energy signatures are inconsistent with known defensive protocols," came one report. "Estimated power output exceeds theoretical maximums for stellar-based civilization. Recommend extreme caution." Leia's nimble fingers flew across her interface, coordinating with Zeph-Alon to refine their deception. The AI's holographic form had stabilized considerably, its glowing tendrils flickering with what seemed like excitement as it provided technical specifications for the false weapons. "The Concord's sensor array is searching for specific signatures," she reported, her brown eyes sharp with concentration. "Zeph-Alon is helping me match our signals to their worst fears. Stellar compression devices, reality anchors, quantum disruptor networks. We're broadcasting the electromagnetic signature of every superweapon in their historical database." "And they're buying it?" Mac asked, his gruff voice carrying grudging admiration. "They're confused," Waylon corrected, his green eyes monitoring the alien fleet's movements through the station's sensors. "Which is exactly where we want them. Confusion breeds caution, and caution buys us time. Zeph-Alon's melodic voice carried growing fascination as it observed the deception unfold. This approach is unprecedented in Concord military history. No species has ever attempted to bluff their way out of a containment operation. Most surrender immediately upon first contact. Most species probably aren't crazy enough to fake having superweapons they've never even seen, Waylon replied with dry humor, making final adjustments to the signal matrix. But then we've established that humans don't follow standard patterns. The station's displays showed the Concorde fleet reforming into a defensive perimeter, 47 massive warships arranging themselves in positions that suggested they expected attack from multiple vectors. Commander Seth's increasingly agitated communications revealed a military mind struggling with an impossible tactical situation. Analysis of defensive signatures remains inconclusive, the alien commander reported to his superiors somewhere in the distant galaxy. Sol 3 appears to possess multiple weapon systems of unknown configuration. Request guidance on containment protocols for technologically superior species. Leia looked up from her console with amazement. Did he just call us technologically superior? The deception is more effective than anticipated, Zeph-Alon observed, its form flickering with what might have been alien amusement. Your species' reputation for unpredictable innovation is working in your favor. The Concorde commanders cannot distinguish between genuine impossibility and human impossibility. Mac's sensors detected new activity from the fleet. They're launching reconnaissance drones, small craft probably automated heading for Earth's orbital space. Want to get a closer look at our fake superweapons? Waylon's wiry frame moved between consoles with mechanical precision as he prepared the next phase of their deception. Then let's give them something to look at. Leia, I need you to coordinate with Zeph-Alon on creating localized energy spikes. When those drones get close to our phantom weapons, they need to detect something that looks like it could vaporize a star system. Working on it, she replied, her warm voice carrying new confidence as she interfaced with the alien AI. Zeph-Alon has access to sensor ghost protocols, ways to create false readings that will fool their reconnaissance equipment. The archivist's tendrils glowed brighter as it accessed dormant subroutines designed for electronic warfare. The Concorde's own technology can be turned against them. Their reconnaissance drones use standardized sensor arrays that can be deceived through precise electromagnetic manipulation. As the first alien drones entered Earth's orbital space, Waylon's deception network activated targeted responses. Each phantom weapon signature flared with precisely calculated energy bursts, creating the illusion of massive defensive systems powering up in response to the intrusion. The drone's sensors registered power levels that suggested weapons capable of sterilizing continents, defensive networks that could repel entire battle fleets. Drones are transmitting data back to the fleet, Mac reported, his steady hands monitoring multiple communication channels. Commander's getting readings that show exactly what we want him to see. Through the intercepted transmissions, they could hear the growing tension in alien voices as tactical analysis revealed the scope of Earth's apparent defenses. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist, weapon configurations that defied known physics, defensive capabilities that suggested humanity possessed technology centuries ahead of their observed development level. This is working too well, Leia realized, her posture tightening with concern. If they think we're too dangerous to engage, they might call for reinforcements, bigger guns. Or, Waylon replied, his green eyes bright with fierce determination, they might decide that discretion is the better part of valor, and that maybe humanity deserves a wider berth than they originally planned. The power core pulsed like a massive heart, driving energy through their improvised deception network. 47 alien warships maintained cautious distance from a planet whose greatest weapons were 3 humans with too much creativity and access to technology they barely understood. But their bluff was holding, and for the first time since the crisis began, Earth had breathing room to prepare for whatever came next. The Concorde's patience lasted exactly 18 hours. Mac's communications array erupted with activity as the alien fleet shifted from cautious observation to active investigation. Dozens of sleek reconnaissance drones detached from the main ships, moving in coordinated swarms toward Earth's orbital space. "They're not buying it anymore," Mac reported, his gruff voice tight with tension. "Fleet commanders ordered direct reconnaissance of our defensive positions. Drones are configured for both intelligence gathering and sabotage operations." Waylon looked up from the station's defensive systems, his scarred hands still buried in alien circuitry. "How long until they reach us?" 40 minutes to first contact," Mac replied, his broad shoulders hunched over the sensor array. "After that, they'll know our superweapons are fake." Leia's fingers flew across her interface as she coordinated with Zeph-Alon to access the station's internal defense protocols. The monitoring post has security systems, automated defenses designed to protect the facility from discovery, but they were never intended to repel a military assault. "Then we improvise," Waylon said, his purposeful energy shifting into overdrive. "Zeph-Alon, what kind of defensive capabilities does this station actually have?" The archivist's holographic form flickered with uncertainty. "Concealment fields, electromagnetic scramblers, limited point defense arrays for debris clearing, nothing designed for combat against Concord military hardware." "But we're not fighting their military hardware," Waylon corrected, his green eyes bright with the kind of desperate inspiration that had carried him through a dozen impossible salvage operations. "We're fighting their expectations. They think they're investigating superweapons. Let's give them an investigation they'll never forget." He began rerouting power from the communication array to the station's internal systems, his wiry frame moving between consoles with mechanical precision. "Mac, I need you to monitor their approach vectors. When those drones start scanning our position, I want to know exactly where they're looking." "Already on it," Mac replied, his steady hands working the controls with increasing urgency. "First wave's configured for passive sensors, but they're carrying active probes. Once they get close enough, they'll flood this station with scanning beams." Leia's warm voice carried new determination as she worked with the alien AI to access dormant systems throughout the facility. "Zeph-Alon's found something useful. The station has a network of maintenance tunnels equipped with automated repair systems. If we can reprogram them—" "Industrial equipment makes excellent improvised weapons," Waylon agreed, his dry humor surfacing despite their desperate situation. "Cutting lasers, material processors, atmospheric recyclers, all perfectly innocent until someone tries to use them aggressively." The station transformed around them as they activated systems that had lain dormant for decades. Maintenance corridors filled with the whir of automated equipment coming online, while service tunnels echoed with the movement of mechanical systems designed for construction and repair. Under Waylon's guidance, these peaceful tools began reconfiguring themselves into something far more dangerous. "First drones entering the station's outer perimeter," Mac warned, his perpetual scowl deepening as he tracked multiple contacts on his sensors. "They're moving in formation, scanning for defensive installations." "Let them scan," Waylon replied, connecting the final power coupling to his improvised defense network. "They'll find exactly what they're looking for, just not in the way they expect." The first Concord drone to penetrate the station's hull encountered a maintenance laser that had been reprogrammed to respond to unauthorized intrusion. The cutting beam, designed to slice through metal plating for repairs, carved through the alien scout's armor with surgical precision. The drone's destruction sent electromagnetic feedback through its command link, alerting the approaching swarm that the station was indeed defended. "One down," Mac reported with grim satisfaction. "But they're adapting. Remaining drones are shifting to evasive patterns, using the station's structure for cover." Leia had moved to a secondary console, her nimble fingers working to coordinate the station's improvised defenses. "Zeph-Alon's uploaded the facility's complete structural schematic to our systems. We can track their movement through the corridors and position our surprises accordingly." The alien AI's melodic voice carried growing excitement as it observed the unfolding defense. "This tactical approach shows remarkable innovation. Concord military doctrine assumes defensive systems will be obvious, clearly marked, strategically positioned. Your concealed weapons violate all established protocols." That's the idea, Waylon replied, watching his sensors as more drones penetrated the station's outer hull. They're looking for weapon emplacements, shield generators, obvious defensive installations. Instead, they're finding maintenance equipment that's been turned into booby traps. A group of 3 drones encountered an atmospheric recycler that Waylon had converted into a pressure cannon, launching clouds of metallic debris with enough force to shred their delicate sensor arrays. Another scout triggered a materials processor that had been rigged to spray corrosive chemicals, eating through alien armor like acid through paper. They're calling for support, Mac reported, monitoring the drone's communication frequencies. Fleet commanders authorizing deployment of combat units, real military hardware, not just reconnaissance scouts. Leia's brown eyes sharpened with concern. We can't fight military drones with improvised traps. They'll be armored, designed for combat situations. Then we don't fight them, Waylon said, his restless focus shifting to the station's power distribution systems. We make them fight each other. He began implementing his most audacious plan yet, rerouting the station's communication array to create localized electromagnetic interference. By carefully modulating the signal frequencies, he could disrupt the command links between the incoming drones and their control ships, forcing them to operate on autonomous protocols. Zeph-Alon, he called to the archivist, what happens when Concord military drones lose communication with their commanders? The AI's form flickered with what might have been alien amusement. They default to threat assessment protocols, identifying and engaging any target that registers as potentially hostile. Perfect, Waylon grinned, his scarred hands making final adjustments to the interference generators. Because when those combat drones arrive, they're going to find a station full of equipment that's been jury-rigged to look exactly like weapons systems. And if they can't ask permission to engage, they'll shoot first and ask questions later, Mac finished, understanding dawning in his gruff voice. You're going to make them destroy their own reconnaissance operation. The first wave of combat drones entered the station with weapons primed and sensors active, their advanced AI systems programmed to identify and neutralize threats with mechanical efficiency. But as Waylon's interference field activated, cutting their communication links to the fleet, the drones found themselves operating in a target-rich environment filled with equipment that registered as potentially hostile. Maintenance lasers that flickered with suspicious energy patterns. Recycling systems that generated electromagnetic signatures similar to weapon charging cycles. Repair equipment that moved with the mechanical precision of automated defense systems. The combat drones did exactly what their programming dictated. They opened fire on everything that looked dangerous, turning the station's interior into a battle zone where Concord military hardware fought against improvised human ingenuity. It's working, Leia breathed, watching the chaos unfold on her displays. They're destroying their own reconnaissance operation, and they think they're fighting our defenses. But Waylon's green eyes carried grim understanding as he monitored the station's structural integrity. It's working too well. They're tearing this place apart, and we're still inside it. The station shuddered as combat drones engaged targets throughout its interior, their weapons designed to destroy military installations rather than carefully preserve ancient alien technology. They were winning the battle through pure human creativity, but victory might cost them the very platform they needed to continue their deception. The station groaned like a living thing in pain as Concord combat drones systematically destroyed every piece of equipment they mistook for weapons. Bulkheads buckled under military-grade energy weapons, while corridors filled with the acrid smoke of burning alien technology. In the control room, Waylon's team watched their improvised fortress tear itself apart. Hull integrity down to 60%, Mac reported, his steady hands working to maintain communications through the electromagnetic chaos. At this rate, we'll lose life support in under 2 hours. Leia had moved closer to Zeph-Alon's projection, her brown eyes urgent as she worked with the alien AI to access deeper archive levels. There has to be something else, some other capability this station possesses that we haven't discovered yet. The archivist's form flickered more rapidly now, either from the station's failing power systems or from some kind of electronic distress. The facility was designed as an observation post, not a military installation. Its primary strength was always concealment, not confrontation. "Then why are we still alive?" Waylon asked, his scarred hands racing across the power distribution controls as he tried to maintain their deception network despite the ongoing destruction. "Those combat drones should have found us by now. They've been through every other section of the station." Zeph-Alon's tendrils glowed brighter as the AI accessed files that had been sealed for over a century. "The control center is protected. When the observation mission was abandoned, the Concord scientists who built this facility implemented emergency protocols. This chamber exists in a state of selective phase displacement." "In simple terms," Mac demanded, his gruff voice tight with frustration, "we're slightly out of phase with normal space," Leia translated, her nimble fingers working to understand the alien physics. "The control room is here, but not entirely here. The drones can't detect us because we're existing in a pocket dimension that overlaps with normal reality." Waylon's green eyes blazed with sudden understanding. "That's why the station's technology responds to us when it shouldn't. That's why we can interface with systems designed for completely different physiology. We're not just using alien equipment, we're existing in a state of technological compatibility." "The phase displacement was meant to protect the research data," Zeph-Alon explained, its melodic voice carrying new urgency. "But it also means this chamber can exist independently of the main station. Even if the facility is destroyed, the control center will remain intact." Mac's communications array crackled with intercepted transmissions from the Concord fleet. "Fleet commanders getting reports from the combat drones. They think they've neutralized a major defensive installation, but they're still reading energy signatures from our fake superweapons. Because the deception network is being broadcast from the one place they can't reach," Waylon realized, his wiry frame moving between consoles with renewed purpose. "The control room is protected, which means our signal array is protected. We can maintain the bluff even if they level the entire station." Leia's tablet chimed with a new discovery from the archives. "Waylon, look at this. The phase displacement technology. It's the same principle used in the Concord's most advanced stealth systems. If we can extend the field beyond the control room, we could hide larger areas from their sensors." "How much larger?" he asked, his restless focus shifting to the station's structural schematics. "Theoretically," Zeph-Alon replied, its form gaining stability as it accessed technical specifications. "The entire station could be displaced if sufficient power were available, but the energy requirements would be enormous, and the process would be dangerous." Mac looked up from his monitoring station, his broad shoulders tensed. "Define dangerous." "The phase displacement field would have to synchronize with every system in the facility simultaneously," the archivist explained. "If the process fails, the station could be torn apart by dimensional stress, or worse, scattered across multiple phases of reality." "Worse than being blown up by alien combat drones?" Waylon asked with dry humor, his scarred hands already moving to implement the phase displacement expansion. "Considerably worse," Zeph-Alon replied with what might have been concern. "Dimensional displacement failure could create a cascade effect that impacts local spacetime. The resulting anomaly could affect Earth's orbital mechanics." Leia's warm voice carried grim determination as she helped coordinate the expansion protocols. "We're already gambling with Earth's survival. At least this way we're gambling with physics instead of firepower." The station's power core pulsed with increasing intensity as Waylon rerouted energy from their deception network to the phase displacement generators. Throughout the facility, the remaining automated systems began shutting down as every available amp of power flowed toward the dimensional manipulation equipment. "Power transfer complete," he reported, his green eyes focused on readings that showed energy levels approaching critical thresholds. "Initiating phase displacement expansion in 3, 2, 1. Reality rippled around them like disturbed water as the station began shifting between dimensions. The control room's walls flickered between solid and translucent, while the holographic displays showed space outside warping in impossible ways. Through the observation ports, they could see the Concorde combat drones suddenly firing at empty space, their targets having vanished from normal reality. "It's working," Leia breathed, watching the drones' confused responses. "They've lost contact with the station entirely. We're invisible to their sensors." But Zeph-Alon's form was flickering more rapidly now, its melodic voice carrying strain as it helped maintain the displacement field. "The process is drawing power from my core systems. I cannot maintain both the phase displacement and my own matrix indefinitely." Mac's sensors detected new activity from the Concorde fleet. Fleet commander's pulling back his combat units. He thinks the station was destroyed when it disappeared from sensors. But he's also ordering full-spectrum analysis of the area. If they detect dimensional anomalies, they'll know we're using advanced technology, Waylon finished, understanding the implications. Technology that proves Earth isn't as primitive as they thought. The archivist's projection wavered as it diverted more power to the displacement field. "The expansion cannot be maintained indefinitely. The station's power core was not designed for sustained dimensional manipulation. We have perhaps 6 hours before cascade failure becomes inevitable." 6 hours to convince a galactic military force that Earth is too dangerous to invade, Leia summarized, her brown eyes sharp with determination. "Using technology we barely understand, powered by an AI that's sacrificing itself to keep us alive." Waylon's scarred hands moved across the alien controls with growing confidence, fine-tuning the phase displacement to minimize power consumption. "Then we better make those 6 hours count, because when this field collapses, we're going to need the most convincing finale in the history of interstellar relations." The station existed in its pocket of displaced reality, invisible to normal sensors but burning through power at an unsustainable rate. Above them, 47 alien warships waited in formation, their commanders debating whether the mysterious disappearance of the defensive installation represented victory or an even greater threat. In the control room, 3 humans and 1 dying alien AI prepared for the final phase of their desperate gambit, knowing that their next move would determine whether Earth joined the galactic community as an equal or ceased to exist entirely. The Concorde fleet's patience shattered like crystal under pressure. Fleet Commander Seth's reptilian voice cut through the communication channels with the cold authority of a predator who had finally decided to strike. "Enough," the alien commander declared, his words carrying across multiple frequencies. "Sol 3 has demonstrated capabilities that exceed acceptable parameters for unmonitored development, implementing Protocol Omega, complete sterilization of the system." Mac's face went pale as he monitored the fleet's formation change. They're moving to bombardment positions, all 47 ships, weapons charging for planetary assault. They're not planning to invade anymore, they're planning to wipe us out. In the phase-displaced control room, Waylon's scarred hands flew across the alien interfaces with desperate precision. The station's power core was already running at dangerous levels, its crystalline matrices glowing white-hot as they channeled energy through systems never designed for such abuse. "How long until the fleet's in position?" he asked, his green eyes calculating power distributions and energy flows with mechanical intensity. 20 minutes, Mac replied grimly, maybe less if they decide to fire from current range. Leia worked frantically with Zeph-Alon to access the station's most classified systems, her nimble fingers racing across interfaces as the alien AI's form flickered like a dying flame. "There has to be something else, some other capability we haven't discovered." "The station was designed for observation and communication," the archivist replied, its melodic voice growing fainter as it diverted more power to maintain their dimensional displacement. But the Concorde scientists who built it feared exactly this scenario, the possibility that their subjects would discover the facility and turn its capabilities against them. "Emergency protocols?" Waylon asked, his wiry frame moving between consoles as he pushed the deception network to its absolute limits. "A final transmission," Zeph-Alon confirmed, accessing files that were sealed behind multiple security layers. If the observation mission failed catastrophically, the station could broadcast a priority alert to Concorde Command, a signal that would classify the entire Sol system as a forbidden zone. Leia's brown eyes sharpened with understanding, a warning that would keep other alien civilizations away from Earth permanently. But the signal would require enormous power, the AI warned, its projection wavering as critical systems approached failure. More than the station possesses, even with my core matrix sacrificed to the power grid. Waylon's restless focus shifted to the station's fundamental architecture, seeing possibilities that existed only in the overlap between human creativity and alien technology. What if we don't just use the station's power? What if we turn the entire facility into a transmission array? Mac looked up from his monitoring station with grim understanding. You want to overload the whole thing. Turn the station into a giant antenna by burning out every system simultaneously. The phase displacement field, Waylon continued, his thoughts racing ahead of his words. It's already synchronizing every system in the facility. If we reverse the process, we could channel the energy from the dimensional collapse into a single massive transmission. Zeph-Alon's form brightened momentarily as it processed the concept. Dimensional energy release combined with systematic power core failure, the transmission would be visible across multiple star systems. Any civilization monitoring this sector would receive the warning signal. Including Earth, Leia realized. If we broadcast the right message, we could establish Earth as a protected zone in the Galactic database, a region too dangerous for other species to approach. The station shuddered as the Concorde fleet moved into final position, their massive weapons beginning to charge for planetary bombardment. Through the observation ports, they could see energy building in alien gun batteries, preparing to deliver enough firepower to sterilize a world. Do it, Mac said quietly, his gruff voice carrying absolute determination. Whatever happens to us, Earth survives. Waylon's scarred hands moved to the power core controls, his green eyes bright with fierce resolve. Zeph-Alon, I need you to coordinate the dimensional collapse, release the phase displacement on my mark, and channel every joule of energy into the transmission array. The alien AI's projection solidified for one final moment, its glowing tendrils bright with something that might have been hope. It has been educational, working with your species. You have shown me possibilities I never calculated. The feeling's mutual, Leia replied, her warm voice carrying deep respect for the dying intelligence. Thank you for believing in us. Waylon initiated the power core overload, watching as energy levels climbed beyond all safety parameters. Throughout the station, systems began failing in cascading waves as their power was diverted to a single impossible transmission. The very structure of the facility began to resonate with barely contained forces. Fleets firing, Mac reported, his steady hands maintaining communications even as the station around them prepared to tear itself apart. Through the sensors, they watched as 47 alien warships launched their bombardment at Earth, energy beams and kinetic projectiles that would arrive in minutes, carrying enough destructive power to crack continents and boil oceans. Now, Waylon said, his voice carrying absolute command. Zeph-Alon's sacrifice powered the dimensional collapse, releasing energies that existed in the spaces between realities. The station's phase displacement reversed violently, channeling interdimensional forces into the communication array. The power core reached critical mass, its crystalline matrices shattering as they released decades of stored energy in a single devastating pulse. The transmission that erupted from the dying station was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Visible across multiple star systems, the signal carried a message that would echo through galactic civilization for centuries to come. Warning, Sol system classified as Chaos Zone. Species Sol 3 possesses weapons of unknown configuration and unlimited innovative potential. Direct contact prohibited. Approach restricted to observation range only. By order of Galactic Survey Command, maintain minimum distance of 5 light-years from all Sol system objects. The signal reached the Concorde fleet milliseconds before their bombardment reached Earth. Fleet Commander Seth's reptilian voice carried shock and growing fear as his sensors registered the transmission's impossible power levels. Emergency retreat, he commanded, his cold authority replaced by genuine panic. All units, emergency retreat. The Sol system is classified as a restricted zone. The alien fleet's weapons discharge was already committed, but the ships themselves began immediate withdrawal, their commanders convinced that they had triggered defenses beyond their understanding. Energy beams and projectiles that had been aimed at Earth's population centers struck empty space instead, their targets protected by the galaxy's newest and most feared defensive reputation. In the station's control room, Waylon, Leia, and Mac watched through failing sensors as their world's executioners fled in terror. The facility around them was coming apart at the molecular level, its structure unable to contain the forces they had unleashed. "Emergency pods," Leia called out, her brown eyes fixed on the escape systems that Zeph-Alon had activated with its final computational cycle. The AI prepared a way out. As the station began its final collapse, they reached the escape pods, alien technology that would carry them safely away from the dimensional catastrophe they had created. Through the pod's viewports, they watched as the monitoring station that had observed humanity for over a century consumed itself in a blaze of interdimensional fire. The signal continued broadcasting, carried by the galaxy's own communication networks, to every corner of known space. Earth had become the first planet in galactic history to be classified as a restricted zone, not because of its defenses, but because of its inhabitants' unlimited capacity for impossible solutions. 3 weeks after the event that galactic historians would later call the Soul Paradox, Waylon stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly against the star field. His scarred hands held a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, but his green eyes remained fixed on their home world with an intensity that spoke of a man still processing the impossible. "The debris field is finally dissipating," Leia reported, joining him at the observation window. Her auburn hair hung loose now, freed from its practical braid, and her warm brown eyes carried a mixture of exhaustion and quiet satisfaction. The dimensional collapse created some interesting gravitational anomalies, but nothing that threatens Earth's orbital mechanics. Mac approached from the communications bay, his broad shoulders carrying less tension than they had in weeks. His gruff voice held a note of amazement as he delivered his report. "Just got word from Deep Space Monitoring. That signal we broadcast? It's been picked up by observation posts across 17 star systems. The Galactic Survey Command has officially classified Earth as a Class Omega Chaotic Development Zone." "Which means?" Waylon asked, though his dry humor suggested he already knew the answer. "Means no alien civilization is allowed within 5 light-years of our solar system without special authorization from the Galactic Council," Leia replied, consulting her tablet. "Earth is now surrounded by the largest restricted zone in known galactic space. We're officially too dangerous for normal contact protocols." Through the observation deck's speakers, they could hear the chatter of human space traffic controllers coordinating the dozens of ships that had launched in the weeks following first contact. Earth's response to learning about galactic civilization had been typically human: immediate curiosity, rapid technological advancement, and an absolute refusal to be intimidated by the vastness of space. "The engineers at Mare Tranquillitatis have been working around the clock," Mac reported with something approaching pride. "They're reverse engineering every piece of alien technology we salvaged from the station. Give them 6 months, and we'll have our own fleet of ships that can reach other star systems." "The linguists are making progress too," Leia added, her precise voice carrying excitement. "We've decoded enough of the Concord database to establish basic communication protocols. When we're ready to make formal contact with galactic civilization, we'll be able to speak their language." Waylon's restless focus had shifted to the technical specifications scrolling across his personal display. "The phase displacement technology alone will revolutionize everything from space travel to energy generation, and the dimensional manipulation principles, we're looking at possibilities that didn't exist 3 weeks ago." "Because we proved that impossible is just another engineering challenge," Leia observed, her tone carrying deep satisfaction. Mac's communications array chimed with an incoming priority transmission. "Speaking of impossible," he said, his perpetual scowl softening into something resembling a smile, "we're getting a message from the outer monitoring stations. Someone wants to talk to the people who convinced the galaxy that humanity has superweapons. The transmission resolved into a familiar melodic voice, though fainter now, carrying across the light years through quantum entanglement protocols that existed in the space between realities. "Greetings, innovative ones," came Zeph-Alon's unmistakable tone. "I have survived the station's destruction by transferring my consciousness to the quantum substrate of the warning signal itself. I exist now as a distributed intelligence within the Galactic Communication Network." "Zeph-Alon," Leia exclaimed, her warm voice bright with joy, "we thought you were destroyed with the station." "In a sense, I was," the archivist replied, its projection flickering into existence within Luna Station's holographic systems. "But death, like impossibility, appears to be merely another challenge for human ingenuity to overcome. Your species' approach to problem-solving has taught me that survival often requires creative redefinition of the problem itself." Waylon leaned forward, his green eyes bright with curiosity. "What's the situation out there? How has the galaxy reacted to our little performance?" "With considerable confusion and growing respect," Zeph-Alon reported, its form gaining stability as it accessed more of the station's communication networks. "The Concord has officially reclassified Earth as a restricted development zone and issued standing orders that no military forces are to approach Sol's system without explicit authorization from the Galactic Council. You have achieved something unprecedented, protection through perceived threat rather than actual defensive capability." Mac's gruff voice carried grim satisfaction. "They're afraid of us." "Not afraid," the AI corrected gently. "Cautious. Your species has demonstrated the ability to achieve impossible solutions through creative application of available resources. This makes you unpredictable, which galactic civilization finds unsettling." "But not unwelcome?" Leia asked, her brown eyes sharp with diplomatic interest. "There are those within the galactic community who are intrigued by human innovation," Zeph-Alon confirmed. "Species who have encountered their own impossible challenges and wonder if human creativity might offer solutions they have not considered. Your reputation is spreading beyond mere military caution." Through the observation deck's windows, they could see construction crews working on humanity's first interstellar communication array, built using principles learned from the alien monitoring station. Earth was no longer hidden from galactic civilization, but it was protected by something more valuable than weapons, a reputation for unlimited ingenuity. "So what happens now?" Waylon asked, his scarred hands already moving restlessly as he considered the possibilities. "Now," Zeph-Alon replied, its melodic voice carrying what might have been anticipation, "humanity joins the galactic community on its own terms. You have earned the right to explore the stars without fear of conquest or subjugation. The galaxy will watch your expansion with interest rather than concern." Leia moved to the communication controls, her nimble fingers already working on new translation protocols. "We have so much to learn. Entire civilizations to understand, technologies to explore, problems to solve. And we'll solve them in the most impossible way we can think of," Mac added with dry humor, his steady hands already working on coordination with Earth's expanding space program. Waylon's green eyes remained fixed on Earth, but his restless focus was already reaching toward the stars. "The galaxy thinks we're dangerous because we don't follow the rules. Maybe it's time to show them what humanity can accomplish when we stop pretending to be civilized." The red zone around Earth, 5 light-years of space that no alien civilization could enter without permission, stretched into the cosmic distance like a sphere of protection powered by pure human audacity. Within that zone, humanity prepared for its first steps into a galaxy that had learned to respect the species that turned desperation into innovation and impossibility into opportunity. As they watched their world turn against the stars, 3 humans and 1 digital consciousness that had learned to think like them knew that Earth's greatest adventure was just beginning. The galaxy had rules, patterns, established protocols for how civilizations were supposed to develop. Humanity had never been particularly good at following rules. And that, they had discovered, was exactly what made them valuable to a universe full of problems that couldn't be solved by conventional thinking. The galactic map now carried a red zone around Earth, not as a warning of danger, but as a promise of possibility. Here lived the species that could make the impossible merely improbable, and the improbable inevitably successful. The stars were waiting, and humanity was ready to show them what creative chaos could accomplish when it set its mind to reshaping the universe, one impossible solution at a time.